Brett Hornig. It's great to have you here on the Singletrack Podcast. Normally, you're my co-host on many different versions of the show, but in this episode, we're actually talking about a race you have coming up, the Havallina Jundred. We'll go through a lot of stuff, but any initial thoughts? Like, what are you feeling right now?
Feeling good. Yeah, I mean, the crew, the Pacers, it's really all coming together. I feel like kind of last minute, but that's how it happened last year at Havallina, and it went really well. So perhaps there's something to not actually worrying about the planning part until like 2 weeks before the race. But training's been going well. I'm healthy. I'm looking forward to it.
Correct me if I got any of this wrong, but fourth place last year in about 13:45. In my opinion, subjectively, you solidified yourself as more than just a fast media guy. You also narrowly missed a golden ticket, I think by one spot. Like, you and I were wondering all the way into late spring if Dakota or John were going to change things up and it'd roll back to you. What brings you back this year?
I didn't think anything would bring me back this year. I mean, immediately after the race last year, you were there. I was like, dude, I'm never having a race that good ever again. I'm retiring. I'm just going out on top. And on top, fourth place at Havallina. That's my on top. And like, I pretty much still firmly thought that until like September. My running had been pretty good. I mean, we've been cranking out a ton of miles just because we've been reviewing so many shoes. And I think as a result, the base fitness for this year is actually kind of better than I thought. And then getting in a whole bunch of mountain stuff this summer kind of contributed to that overall fitness. And then I was initially going to do the 100K and do some media stuff. I was thinking do the 100K and then commentate the last lap of the race. And then I started kind of trying to seriously train for it a little more. And then a lot of my workouts and just long runs, like, were indicating it might actually be more worthwhile to give it a go in the 100. So then I kind of started thinking about that a little more. And I'd had this conversation with a couple of my athletes that I coach, where it was like, if you run the race that's perhaps shorter or a little bit less pressure, and you have the race of your life, will there be any regrets that you didn't do like the marquee event? Sometimes that answer is yes, sometimes that's no. And in my case, I think if I had like really knocked the 100K out of the park, all I would be thinking is like, damn, what would that have been in the 100 miles? So I'm kind of to a point now where I don't want to miss that opportunity. So I'm going to forego the microphones for one more race and try and, do all 5 laps.
Well, I know for a fact you'll be sorely missed on the content / live stream side of things, but it is exciting that you're taking a swing here. And if we not fast forward, if we go back in time just a little bit, one thing I'd love to hear you talk about is just like when you first got into ultra trail running, which I think was around like 2014 or 2015, you had told me at one point that you thought it'd be kind of cool if like you did see this thing through and you got the best out of yourself, and maybe it put you in a position to be some sort of like pro athlete in the sport. And I think when you look at last year's race at Havallina and sort of like the momentum off that, do you think that race could be a springboard for like realizing that dream?
I think yes. But I think the springboard also like sprung me into a different direction that wasn't necessarily go all in on, like find a sponsor, have them support you, do my running. It kind of almost opened up a lot of doors to, in a way, like sponsor myself for some of these races, like through the coaching, through the conversational pace shoe reviews, through Singletrack, and just kind of the work that like we've done within the industry. It's opened up a lot of opportunities that's definitely made me busier on the work side of things outside of running. But I feel like I learned so much this year when I wasn't running. I mean, like, we got to go and see Western States in a very unique way that most people don't get to. And same with Hard Rock. We watched UTMB like the whole time. I feel like I learned so much this year from some of the top people in the sport that, you know, I don't think I would have ever gotten able to learn those things. Like I got to interview Courtney Dauwalter twice this year. Like I got to ask her like questions about her running. I got to see her run. Those things that I learned then made me be like, dang, I kind of want to try that. I kind of want to try it myself. So it was a huge motivator. And I don't know if I would have gotten those things had, like, say I just put the blinders on and just started doing my own running, because that might have not kept the mind open in a way to try different, whether it's different training kind of philosophies, or even just learning that like you're actually capable of more than you think you are. So I don't know if, even if this race goes really well, if that would turn into like me pursuing any sort of contracts. It might almost just have me lean more into what I'm doing already.
It's pretty cool because you wear a lot of hats in the sport, right? Like you're a coach at Trails and Tarmac, you're an athlete, you've done a lot of stuff on the media side, Singletrack, conversational pace, Aerovipa. I think I'm curious, like, what is something that you've learned being in the media, looking at athletes, that you then take into your training that you didn't necessarily pick up as a coach or being absorbed in your own training?
I think one of the biggest things, I figured it out a little bit before Havallina last year, was getting even more specific with the training. I've always taken a lot of pride in being a pretty well-rounded athlete, being like I could hop into a 5K or like a marathon as well as like 100-mile, and all of them would go pretty good. But I just, and that's with where like a lot of like current training science, like we're seeing it too, like a lot of the people winning these major races, they're like, oh, like I leaned even more into the vert and the volume for UTMB. And then when you like combine that with newer fueling science, it's allowing people to more sustainably hit some of these training numbers, and it's not totally trashing themselves. And it's like taking those things that I've gotten to hear firsthand, like, you know, getting to talk to, you know, like Morton's
Josh,
nutrition. Yeah, Josh is, you know, and like hearing it firsthand and like getting to hear from him, like, oh yeah, this is what Tom's doing for his nutrition. And it's like he replicates that in his training, and that allows him to hit these bigger volume numbers. So then it's like, okay, what if I try, you know, reducing my intensity and letting go of, say, like the quote unquote fast stuff for a little bit and leaning more into longer 100-mile things. It's kind of opened up new doors from a training standpoint that I didn't think I could do, in terms of like how much can I run in a week.
When you look back at last year's Havallina and you look back at the execution in particular, what were the biggest reasons it went so well, in your opinion? What did you nail?
I think the biggest thing that I nailed was I took a massive risk with my training. I ran so much more in like the 6 weeks leading up to the race than I ever had in any 6 weeks leading up to a race. And that was kind of coming from a mindset of like, the only 200s I had done prior to that were Western States. And those aren't really the races where you want to like experiment with training and risk not getting to the start line or risk not finishing. Like the race is so like important, like that you kind of have to respect it in a way that it almost hampers your training. Havallina, I kind of went into the approach of like, I'm just going to train the way that I think I should train for this race if I was coaching someone else, and like taking everything I know about me and like throwing it out the window. Can I do it? And if I get hurt, that's fine. Now I know. But I kind of wanted like this. I saw it as a great opportunity to take that risk, trying something new. And then I learned that I could actually do that and run a little bit more than I thought I could. And I think it really like forced me to focus up on a lot of things. And it was hard. I mean, it took so much out of me in terms of just like the day in, day out grind of like everything you're doing you have to make sure it's for Havallina, like going to bed early and like waking up and getting your runs in and doing your stretching and your mobility and all that stuff and like actually doing it all, but then to see it all result in a race like 13:45 last year, like I trained like someone who could run 13:45 last year. That's kind of what it ultimately came out to be.
Maybe even putting your coaching hat back on, how would you advise other athletes to pick between the textbook versus the experimental training? Because even with Havallina, I mean, you and I could probably debate this, but Havallina has become a pretty prime time race. So even that's a race where it's like, oof, do I really want to like push the envelope here, or do I want to sort of like stay conservative? Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to the importance of that next race, and like, is that next race that you're signed up for, is it worth potentially not starting? Is it worth potentially missing time for, like, if you get hurt, you get a stress fracture or something, like you're missing months. Are you okay taking that risk just to see if you're able to, if making that jump in training nets a positive stimulus? I think those are just decisions that you really have to make. And I was kind of already to a point where I was like, Havallina 2022, this is the last hurrah. We're going for broke, and like we're just going to send it and then just be done with running forever. And it worked. And then it was like, sick. I can't believe that actually worked. We can be done racing forever. But now it's taken a whole year to kind of get that fire back again. And I've done some races and they've been super fun, but they've been like smaller races, going out with friends and like still racing them hard, but not, going to the full well in terms of training for them. And I feel like it just has taken a full calendar year to feel like I'm ready to do that again.
Obviously, it was a great day, but were there any areas for improvement in your mind? And how did that translate into the last 6 to 8 weeks of training?
I think the one thing that I got lucky with last year is it wasn't that hot last year. It was like in the 80s. I'm full well assuming it's going to be in the 90s this year. So I've been training, keeping that in mind. So I've upped the heat training. I feel like I'm more prepared for the heat than I was last year. And last year I was pretty prepared for the heat, but I've added some things. Like I've been doing like warm treadmill runs, over here in the studio, just sitting in my own filth. I think the other big thing is last year I had like 35 minutes of stoppage time. I think I can knock 20 minutes off of that.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I think I was running so well that I was like, well, I don't want to screw this up. I want to make sure to take my time at the aid stations. And I think for last year, that was the right call. For this year, I think now I know, like, these are some things. Like last year, I changed my socks at the end of lap 3. I don't plan on doing that this year. I took a little bit of time at like most aid stations. I think I can just be a little bit quicker through that. I think our transitions in and out of, the headquarters were pretty quick. I think they can be just a few seconds quicker. And that's just with streamlining some of the things. Don't worry, I've got a whole spreadsheet for you. But from a running standpoint, like last year, I feel like the actual running part, I executed that about as good as I could have on that day. So this year, my goal is to replicate that. Ideally, I'm just a little bit fitter than last year, and I think I might be. We'll find out.
So you've raced Western States twice now. I think we would both agree to nowhere near your potential. I think if you're running 13:45 at Havallina, you should at least be running in the 16s at Western. I guess it's debatable, but I feel like you have many hours to shave off there. If you get the golden ticket, if you have the chance to race Western States, are you definitely committing to it? Or are you going to take the whole, like, I'm going to accept the ticket and we'll see come like April or May?
Dude, I'm going to have to consult with my employers. Dude, Finn, how would you feel if I got a golden ticket and then it's very bittersweet.
Be so torn. I would be so incredibly torn. I think the selfish person in me would not want you to take it. But obviously I want you to take it.
I think I would take it, but still commit to doing everything leading up to the race. I would still do all the pre-race interviews and the live shows.
We could do it.
I loved doing that, and like we would be so much more organized this year. Like in terms of just like we wouldn't have any tech mishaps. I mean, I'm sure we will, but it wouldn't be as bad.
Or
I think
we could outsource. We could just outsource the editing and the live stream OBS setup stuff. We could just outsource it all.
I think we'd be able to. I think I could juggle both. The only thing I wouldn't be able to do is race day coverage because I would be out there running. But I think that's okay, especially after what we learned this past year. I think we could do it. I think we could do it without me for Saturday.
But you would so like assuming all that's controlled, you would take it.
Yeah, I would take the ticket. Absolutely. I would love to give Western States another go because, like you said, I think I've left so much time on the table out there.
I think you've left like 5 hours.
I know.
At least.
And that might just be partly learning where some of my strengths and weaknesses are within trail running. And even though I've been doing it for almost a decade, like still learning a lot. Like I think I need to treat Western States like much more of a mountainous course than I have been, because the limiting factor the last few years had always just been like my legs blowing up. And it's like, dude, I got to freaking train for like UTMB and then go race Western States. So, I don't think the speed aspect isn't a problem. Hence, like Havallina going pretty well. Like if I ran 13:45 at Western States, I'd be pretty stoked.
Last topic we got to cover, and I'm actually genuinely excited to talk about this because you're the right person to talk about it with, and that's just like your gear setup. I remember last year at Havallina, you introduced me to like 6 new brands, like Never Second, and I think Precision, Delta G, HVMN, like all of these new like exotic brands. Talk about, first of all, we'll talk about Nike in a second, but talk about like nutrition and any, like what are you rolling with nutrition wise, gear wise, all that kind of stuff.
So nutrition wise, I'm still going to be sticking with like Never Second for probably half my calories. And then the other half is going to be my own little like goo soft flask full of mega condensed Roctane powder. Like I've learned, like you can dump 5 goos into one of those flasks and you have 5 goos. I can also dump 100 carbohydrates worth of Roctane powder into one of those flasks, and when you mix it with hot water, it all mixes in, and it is so much more liquid than 5 gels. Like I think we're getting scammed out here with syrup. Like it's liquid, it's liquidy, and I'm able to put it down like so much easier. So probably half my calories are just going to be from this super condensed Roctane. And I know there's people that are like, why don't you just drink Roctane? Like, I don't want to taste, 30 ounces an hour of Roctane. Like, let me just take my shot of it and then drink some water. So that's going to be the plan. And of course, we'll just pivot if stuff starts to go sideways. But so far with my training, that's what I've been working with, and it's been great. And then ketones, of course, during the race. I need that focus, even though the studies all show that there's no evidence of an increase in power output or endurance economy. I think the ability to think and do public math 60 miles into a race is absolutely a performance benefit. So that's where I'm seeing the ketone use. And I think naked waistband, I'll hold a bottle and I'll tuck another bottle in. The trusty green ice bandana that's crushed so many races at this point.
And talk about the Nike project too, which is exciting because like in the Discord, we've been talking about Nike's increasing investment in the sport, and it looks like you're doing some cool activations with them. So what's up there?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like we've all kind of noticed it that like Nike Trail has invested a huge amount more time and money, resources into trail running this year than perhaps any other year that they've done it. And we worked pretty closely. They started sponsoring the Siskiyou Out and Back trail runs, which is our big trail race here at Ashland. So like, why is Nike Trail sponsoring that race? Because it's in Oregon. They like the area. They like the community. They just wanted to help support the mountain and the trails here. That was pretty much it. They're like, because we like it. So getting to work with them on that was really cool. And then they are essentially they're supporting me for my Havallina journey, going up through this race. So I'll be wearing all Nike clothes for Havallina, and I'm gonna help them out with a couple. Like we're gonna do like a group shakeout run Friday morning. Location TBD, but we do that. We might do some sort of like happy hour thing as well. But it's just cool like that they're gonna be on the ground. They're just trying to build that trail stoke again. I mean, one thing that you and I are both very stoked about is the announcement of their newest Nike Trail athlete signing, Anthony Costales. Shouts to Anthony. Yeah. That's awesome. Huge congrats. That's the real Nike Trail Pro.
What shoes are you wearing? Can you say?
You'll have to find out. You will have to see. I'm wearing an Ultrafly.
Okay. Is there a number attached to the end of that?
No.
Okay. All right.
That's all I can say. We'll just have to take pictures.
All the more reason to tune into the live stream and even be there on the ground. If Protos of the Gram is watching.
It'll be a game day decision, actually. We'll see.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Brett, we're super stoked for you, obviously. Hope you get that ticket. Hope you get another crack at Western. We'll make sure to link to all your social in the show notes. We'll link to Conversational Pace, Trails and Tarmac. And this is awesome. Can't wait to see it and hopefully do a better job sticking with you on lap 4 in my pacing job this year.
I think you're in better shape this year.
I think so.
I don't think you'll have any issues. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is like shouts to Finn Melanson, crew chief, pacer for lap 4. We got Caleb Olson crewing, pacing me for lap 5. Like that's some good juju. And then also crew extraordinaire, probably the most experienced out of all of us, Sarah Osazuski, the Cocodona champion, is also going to be in my corner. Wow. And like that's a squad, and that is going to bring a huge amount of motivation to me to run my best race, because I want you guys to be able to enjoy it as well.
We're going to enjoy it no matter what, but we're going to help you get it done. This is going to be super fun.